away from me. What are you doing?
Oh, oh.
What do you want?
I've been trying to give you this all day.
I didn't even know this was out. The reanimated, the walking dead, the zombie. What kind of situation would bring those that have crossed the river Styx back to the land of the living? A government experiment? A radioactive element? Maybe some sort of bee thing? Or potentially, the most likely, a remaster that hits close to home in the cemetery. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, another fantastic Capcom release taking players all the way back to where Frank West first began, Willamette, Colorado. A quaint little town, revisited this time with a modern reimagining, including a brand new voice acting cast and some of the best looking CGI Capcom has produced yet. A game that inspired me to create this channel, that boasts an incredible amount of following and fan projects across the internet, Dead Rising Remaster's release has already been a point of contention from its reveal earlier this year, and while I haven't personally received a review copy, I can tell you through my already obnoxious amount of hours played in this game, this is one of the best true to form and evolutionary endeavors I've played yet. Albeit slightly different on the surface, Frank West returns to reprise his role as heroic photojournalist and witty sarcastic D-bag just as players might remember. Visually, Frank is definitely questionable, with it being one of the most controversial of changes the game has. However, I feel his new look has at least somewhat grown on me. The more pronounced facial features allow for better animated acting, making emotions feel more realistic than before, at the cost of beauty. The voice acting change, yet again, is actually welcome this time, with some lines delivered almost identical to TJ Rotolo's masterful work in the original Dead Rising. As for the other core cast, most characters are improved through more succinct acting and the previously mentioned graphical enhancements. Our main squeeze, Otis, has his own voice now, performed by the wonderful Dave Fennoy, who has previously voiced Lee from the Walking Dead game and Reggie from the Remnant series. Speaking of Otis, his sidekick, the fabled killer of players, the dreaded Transceiver, received a quality of life upgrade that was seen in later iterations of the series, and that you don't have to stop everything to talk to him. Instead, just requiring players to not be in an active animation at the moment you answer his call. Additionally, multiple missions can be tracked, and using the game's new compass system, replacing the arrow that once attempted to point us in the right direction, we can actually see which direction multiple missions might need, allowing players to better gauge their time, a pivotal move in Dead Rising. Just as before, players are tasked with uncovering the full story of the outbreak by completing all cases involved with the main story and leaving Willamette with the facts. Menus and icons in Dead Rising make this task so much more enjoyable, with an innumerable amount of quality of life changes and aesthetically pleasing tweaks. But in keeping with tradition, Dead Rising is still filled with the brutality the series is known for. Head explosions, flying through the air, harsh NPC deaths, gory psychopath cutscenes, and a wide arsenal of weaponry culminate in an experience that feels different on each run. And you will have multiple runs. If you're an achievement collector, this game is perfect for you. Plenty of challenges engage in almost every mechanic the game has to offer, and provide players with additional unlockable clothes and weapons, from escorting large groups of survivors, to killing zombies in outrageous numbers, to even saving every possible NPC in a run. This game has so many iconic achievements that still manage to provide an interesting level of difficulty to the game, especially for those newer to the game. But it's difficulty that is the one problem this game struggles with. Let me make one point clear here. I firmly believe that while there are some ridiculous accessibility changes that break immersion, there are far more that benefit the players as a whole, even seasoned veterans, one specifically that makes Infinity Mode truly infinite. There are definitely going to be way more comprehensive lists of changes online, but here are some that immediately struck me as important to note. Changing Frank's clothes doesn't lock him in an animation, and all dialogue in the game can be skipped as well. There's now a blender in the safe room, allowing you to make juices on the way out, rather than having to go all the way to Colombian Roastmasters. And even an additional new skills book that allows you to mix any carryable item in the game with another item for a variety of results. I personally spent about 40 minutes trying different combinations. Copious save slots as well as advancing time on Frank's watch are fantastic additions to campaign, though advancing time specifically alters Infinity Mode. The challenge of Infinity Mode was and always has been to survive while trying to manage Frank's health bar the entire time. With the ability to fast forward time, you spend more time standing in a bathroom than you do actually playing the mode, assuming you're playing just to get 7-Day Survivor. This breaks the original pacing of Infinity Mode, but with the addition of boxes that may contain food having the potential to be dropped by regular enemies instead of only the boss encounters, a flawlessly played Infinity Mode run could, in theory, last a very long time. However, one final note. There is a trade-off to advancing time that I hadn't originally considered. During my 7-day Survivor run, I performed the tried and true setup of collecting the health books and grabbing various food items around the mall. Then I proceeded to advance time as much as possible, returning after to grab more food, and repeated this process multiple times to what I would call a fault. Just like the original Infinity Mode, enemies are placed in various plazas at certain points in time of your run, and when advancing time, you may miss out on these boss encounters and their rewards, offering you less food items overall, so keep that in mind while playing Infinity Mode. New books were added, granting even more fun passive skills. The camera store now has accessories for Frank's camera, which are focus, flash, and brightness, which adds depth to the photography aspect of the game. There are a ton of themed DLC costumes, as well as a list of all clothing items in the closet located in the safe room that Frank can obtain, with their location or challenge required to unlock listed alongside it. An entire section with visuals of all the PP stickers strewn across the mall can now be accessed, which isn't the best change considering it's kind of doing the work for you. NPCs will also call out when a PP sticker location or even a hidden weapon is nearby, as well as just randomly talking about things, which adds more realism to the game. The Skills tab shows you how to use the skills with the picture accompanying it. A fresh new status screen shows Frank's level and stats on the right, total kills on the run, and total accumulated PP in a super clean layout. A revamped notebook system allows for more easily accessible information on a variety of game mechanics. The case file screen now displays previous important events and their time tied to them. The beautifully expanded Survivor section gives a stylized overview of each survivor, distinguished by their current status being located, safe, or dead, and even their favorite items. Another interesting feature is that if you've met an NPC on any of your playthroughs and they are savable, a target time and date will show for when their mission is accessible. There's even a log section that goes over previous voice lines that you may have missed. Finally, the Challenge tab was added, which reveals certain rewards and how to achieve them. These challenges encompass all parts of Dead Rising, whether it be escorting survivors, slaying zombies, living a certain amount of days, or photographing and defeating psychopaths. As for the Psychopath fights, this is where the Deluxe Remaster misses the mark. The Psychopath fights from the original presented a much more gratifying experience and better tested player skill and map knowledge, whereas boss fights, especially non-optional ones, seem like sort of a joke in difficulty. And it's that last point that I believe needs adjusted. I understand that the bosses in the original were bullet sponges that took an unrealistic amount of damage, and fixing that makes sense, but without a proper hard mode, the game feels a little easy. I personally believe a post-game patch with some Psychopath buffs and player limitations may be necessary to keep the hardcore fans satiated. And while I do thoroughly enjoy the new damage windows bosses have, akin to modern boss designs and even their improved AI, looking at you prisoners, I brute forced through every Psychopath without a challenge, even after taking an entire year break. But that's honestly where the negatives end for me. I'll admit I am biased because I love Capcom and the series as a whole, but this remaster is so much more than just a fresh coat of paint. This is one of the best remakes I've seen thus far, and is a love letter to the original game in almost every way. As an added bonus, I appreciate that this game has an extra achievement for doing everything, one final reward for putting in the effort for those challenges, some of which are intentionally aggravating. As I stated earlier, Dead Rising was the reason I decided to make this channel. When conceptualizing this project as a whole, I knew my first video had to be something that was well known, but had gone down a bad path later on, and Dead Rising fit the bill entirely. This remaster is a clear indication of the Dead Rising franchise's decline. Seriously, go look up some Dead Rising 4 gameplay and then play the remaster. The differences are so stark it's mind-numbing. And of course, the current devs did stick strictly to the same story, which makes development easier per se, but they didn't have to. They could have just gone with any idea that they wanted to. They could have just released Dead Rising 5 and received sales from nostalgia alone. But instead, they took a masterpiece and arguably made it better. This is what I've been asking for. This is why I make the videos I do, and as sappy as that may sound, it's things like this that drive me to create more. So in short, thank you Capcom for bringing back one of the best games ever made and breathing life back into one of your top properties.